So today I'm getting my first practical use out of the gantry lift here. I did this double line just to try it out. I don't really need it for this. This is pretty light. It's about 350 pounds, so nothing compared to the mill, but still enough I don't want to lift it by hand. So we might as well try this out. I've already lifted this a little bit, but we'll go up here a little bit more. Now right now I've got a power outage here. I guess a tree fell down somewhere. So I am just running on the battery, which it's not a great battery. I usually boost this with a charger when I do it, but still got enough to lift it up. I've got it up and going down's easy, so shouldn't be a problem. I'm ready to pull the truck out here and then we'll bring it to the ground and see if we can get it in. So again, sorry if it's dark in here. I don't have any power at the moment, but that's the battery I'm running it off, the one on the right, and that's my charger. That's an 80 amp. It'll do over 80 amps power going back into the battery, but right now I can't use it because no power. completes that. It has definitely got some weight to it, but it's in. And probably tonight I'll open this up and see what we got inside. So I'm back from my work at the bowling center, and we have light again. Power's back on. So let's see if we can get this open and see what we got inside. No, it's not the mill. That will be coming, as far as I know. The guy is pretty close to wrapping that up. I forget if I mentioned in the earlier videos, when I bought that, the motors in it were wound for kind of like it's an industrial Canadian voltage, I believe. It's like 575 volts, I think. Three-phase, of course. All this big machinery is three-phase. And, well, that's not compatible to anything I have in the shop here. I've just got, this is just basic 220 single phase. But I can generate three-phase power by using VFD drives, which are basically, it's an inverter technology. It's what I used on my little mini mill. And my lathe also uses it. That came equipped with it when I bought it. But they won't step the voltage up. Not the ones that are on the general market anyways. They certainly could do it if they wanted to, but that's not how most of them are produced. So whatever voltage you have coming into the building, that's the highest voltage that they will put out. They can cut it down, but they won't go up. So when I talked to them about buying this, before I actually completed the sale, I told him, I said, I like what I see of the machine and the price, but the voltage is a problem. And he agreed to rewind the motors for me, either replace or rewind them, for the price that he was originally asking, which to me was really made it encouraging to complete the deal. So I agreed to it, and that's a lot of what he's been working on. I think one of the motors he replaced outright, and the other two main motors he has had rewound. The one in the overarm, a bit of work to it because the motor is actually built into the overarm. So he had to take that apart. I actually had to open the gearbox because the shaft goes through a seal, and the end of the shaft is actually on the wet side of the gearbox. So a little involved. And I'm thankful that he decided to agree to this, to do all this work that was involved. I didn't realize how much it actually took to change those out. But it's near complete. All the motors have been rewound. He's got, the last I talked with him, he had all but one put in, which was the overarm one. He was waiting on a seal, because when he had it out, he contacted me and said, hey, the seal probably should be replaced. Do you mind waiting a couple days while I order the seal? Which, considering what's involved, it definitely made sense to change the seal right then when the motor was out. I think he's got that all in now. I haven't talked with him yet. I'll probably talk with him tomorrow. But I think we're pretty close, and he should be bringing it up here pretty soon. I'm hoping within about a week or so that it'll be here in the shop. I've got everything ready here to bring it in, and we'll see what happens then. But for now, let's see what we got here. So basically, I might as well tell you, when I did the gantry setup, I was saying I really could have used the bandsaw for that, and at the time I wasn't ready to spend on it. But I've got another project coming up. I've got the trailer that I unloaded the steel from, frame from an old camper trailer, and I'm going to be building that up. I'm going to make a small single car carrier out of that combination utility trailer. Now that frame is not strong enough as is to hold the weight of a car. and also the wheels they're too narrow to straddle the car. So what I'm going to do is put ramps on that go over the wheels, and I'm going to do it in such a way that it majorly increases the strength of the frame of the trailer. Basically doing like a truss type setup between the ramp and the frame rail down below it. Either that, or I may use plate metal to do a vertical wall inside of the wheels and then do the ramp over that, which is essentially the same idea. It's just a solid wall, which may be advantageous because if I put, use it household stuff and I've got small stuff on the trailer, you don't want it rolling through the lattice work of a truss setup. So I haven't fully decided on that, but the project is going to be happening. I know that because I have some things coming up where I need to use it. So in that, I'm going to have more fabrication and cutting and all that. I figured it's time to get the bandsaw. So here we are. This it's got like a steel frame built around it, and it's not bolted, it's all welded the way they did this. So I think I'm just going to cut this apart here. I think if I just cut the bottoms right here, oh, I don't have to cut it. They got bolts right there. I can just unbolt it. I figured I was going to have to cut it and get the cardboard out, but it's bolted right here at the bottom. So if you guys get one of these, that'll save you a little time right there. So I was thinking when I bought it, I thought I'd have to do a little bit of assembly, but this appears to be pretty well complete. Okay, so I think we're ready. Should be able to lift this off here. I'd be able to make a table or something out of that. Oh, looks all right. It looks like there's an adjustment on the vertical stop, so you can get this so it goes straight up. It's on the back side here. Adjustments on both these. So I'm going to take you around the back. I'm going to show you got the coolant tank back here. Give you a little view of that. And then I'll take a few minutes to kind of set this up off camera, and maybe we'll just spin it up a little bit after that. Okay, so looking from the other side here. And, see if we get enough light in here. So this is where your coolant goes down here, and this is kind of a part. This looks like I got to do a little assembly in here. I don't think it's going to be too much, but this is the way it arrives. I forgot to mention this is the Harbor Freight version. There are a bunch of different versions of this that are apparently all basically the same machine. They just vary a few little details on it. Some of the hardware, like the hydraulic cylinder, may be placed a little different on some. The power switches kind of move around from model to model. But the basic frame of this, the casting, the gearbox, this pulley assembly up here, and all the castings down here where the brackets go, it seems to be pretty much the same between a whole variety of these. The Harbor Freight is the least expensive one. It actually has pretty good reviews from what I've seen. So I decided to go this way, probably about $600 to $1,000 difference. So why not go this way if it works just as good as the others? We'll see. You know, hopefully this thing is worth what I paid for it and does a good job. I do know I have to change the blade. Everybody who's gotten these on the reviews says that the blade it comes with is no good, but you put a good bimetal blade on it and they say it runs great. Okay, so after a few minutes of unpacking here, show a little bit of what was packaged up on the inside where the coolant tank is. So this is the coolant tank. It's steel. I'm hoping these welds are watertight in the corners here. They did put a divider in here to keep the swarf from coming across, but I noticed it's not exactly the tightest. I think it's just to keep big chips from getting over there, because that's quite a gap over in this corner here, if you can see that. Okay, so the rest of the parts, we got a little screen here. I'm assuming that goes in the drain hole here, just like that. I don't think they even mentioned that in the instructions. I might have glossed over it. I just kind of browsed through. We got 2 feet for the stationary end, or 2 stationary feet. That goes on the side with the handle. And we got a wheel set. These are just, you know, they're hard rubber and plastic wheels, nothing special. And they go in down on this side. There's just 2 little holes that you run the shaft through. I think it's a little too dark to see it, but the one thing I don't like here, they really should have included some washers here. The instructions say just to put the cotter pins in on each side. To me, that's really not sufficient on a plastic wheel like this. I don't know, it's just asking for trouble as far as I'm concerned. You know, it's going to rub on that plastic and wear it down. Not to mention the scraping on the pin could eventually maybe break the pin. I'd rather have a washer in between there. There is just a little space. I think I can fit one in. I don't have it on hand right now, but I think I'm going to measure that shaft and pick up some washers to put in there just to space that out. The tube here, I'm assuming, is just to prevent splashing. It drips back to the swarf tray. We got this is for using it as a vertical saw. You're supposed to lock it in the vertical position. I'm still not quite sure how you latch it there. There's supposed to be a hard latch, but I'm not seeing how it goes just yet. The hydraulic latch seems to work pretty good though. That's a support bracket for the vertical tray. And this is kind of flimsy. It's really just a kind of a makeshift conversion to make it work as a vertical. I mean, it'll get you by, but I wouldn't use this for a long-term solution. I've actually got a nice cast aluminum one that's a little bigger than this. So it's just from another saw, and I think I'm going to take that and modify it. I may use this as a guide to do that modification, and I'll mount it up with a nice aluminum plate that'll be a lot more rigid than this. This is your stop mechanism if you're doing repeating cuts. It locks in the front somehow. We'll get to that later. And just the cotter keys for the wheels. One thing I'm a little disappointed with here is the coolant pump. We'll see how it runs, but to me, it just looks like a really cheap pump that's on here. The whole thing's made out of plastic, and I don't know, it just doesn't look like much. It probably does the job, but it's not what I expected. The rest of this unit doesn't look too bad though. The castings look good. It's definitely got some serious weight to it, and everything seems to move okay. Of course, I haven't powered up yet. We'll get to that. Little stuff, and this is just store assembly. You know, there's some things that are a little loose here that may need a little tightening. That's typical for Harbor Freight. But yeah, overall, I mean, the materials in it don't look that bad. So I think it's definitely got potential. That, you know, once everything's assembled good here, it's probably going to be a pretty decent saw. There's some oil out here on the gearbox. I don't know if they filled this in the store or if they were just sloppy when they put the cover back on, or if there's actual leak here. It looks like it's out by the screw. It may be they had the box laying down and it ran out from the screw here. Which this is interesting because it's showing like a fill hole screw, but in the instructions they tell you to fill the oil to take the whole cover off. Yeah, and to do it while it's in the down position, you just let it slope back to the edge of the edge of the lip in the casting. And once it's up to the lip, then you put your cover back on. Motor looks good. Appears to be a totally enclosed fan-cooled motor. So you don't have to worry about ingress into the motor with this type of setup. It looks like cast iron housing on it. And we got our coolant here, and this uses a flexible line. Got a valve so you can control your flow. Not sure how good the valve is. Some of these Chinese valves are really pretty janky. Let's see. That doesn't feel too bad. We'll see if it stops okay. It was a little stiff when I first started, but it's probably just never been turned before. That doesn't feel too bad. I got some, when I got my cool mist for my little mill, that was a Chinese, it was like a needle valve that they used in it to adjust the flow, and the thing was so bad I couldn't use it. I ended up having to replace the valve. I did note on the switches here, I'm not feeling any click on here. We're going to have to see on what happens here. It may be that it's just an electronic button in there and it's a relay setup. Though I kind of doubt it. We'll see if it works alright, but something doesn't feel right there to me. We'll know in a few. Okay, so I pretty well got it set up. Coolant, the cutting oil coolant tank is in. The only thing I haven't put on is the plate for the vertical, but that's only when you use it vertical. When you do it horizontal, you need that off. So for now, I'm going to leave that off. I'll figure that out later. I think I know where it bolts up, but I don't have to do that right now. In the meantime, seems to run alright. It is apparently some kind of relay setup in there, because you don't really feel a click in there. And when the arm goes all the way down, you can momentarily override it by holding the green button, and as soon as you let go, it stops. In fact, I'll show that. And we'll try the auto shut, which I haven't tried, but I'm pretty sure it's going to work because it won't let it start unless you hold that button when it's all the way down. So once that goes fully flat, it should stop. And there it is. You know, on this particular model, they put a micro switch on the back over here. Of the earlier ones, I think had a switch here that just a lever hit it, and it was just a regular toggle switch. it didn't seem very reliable. This looks like a much more reliable setup the way they did it on this one. This is Harbor Freight's current version. Oh yeah, so the override here, if you just hold the green button, it'll run as long as you hold it. I'm not sure what the reasoning is on that you would actually want to run it while it's in the down position like that. So far, pretty happy with it. I haven't tried playing with these speeds on the drop. Maybe we can check that now. So you have to have it cammed over at least to somewhere is about 45 degrees before it'll start coming down. Otherwise, the counter spring will hold it right up. In fact, it'll tip all the way forward. And there's also like a check valve in there, so you can lift it without the resistance. It's just the weight of it going up. But coming back down, the hydraulics lock it. So we've got a lock valve that'll actually stop it from coming down here. And this should be a speed adjustment. So there's fast. And see how much we can slow this. So yeah, that's basically stopped right there. And I don't know if you can even pick that up in the camera, but that is moving there. That's a nice, real slow feed if you need it. I think in most cases it's probably going to be going faster. I'm going to have to experiment with that, with cutting the metal, see what it likes to do. But it's really easy to adjust though. The adjustment's pretty controllable. Okay, so I think we're ready to try the first cut here. What I've got is black iron pipe. I think that's a 1.5 inch pipe. I haven't measured it, but you know, reasonably stout stuff. Certainly small for what this machine can do. This goes up to 7 by 12, 7 high, 12 across is the max cut. So let's fire it up, see how it does. And I got the coolant set up on that. Coolant's up, and let's release it. Not too bad. I think my drop speed might have been a little too fast on that. You could hear the noise from it, but looks like it did alright. First try, I'm satisfied. And this is just the cheap blade that comes with it. I'll be getting a much better blade at a later date. But anyways, so this is the new edition. And hopefully soon we'll be seeing the mill here right behind it over here to the right. So I just wanted to show this real quick. This is the piece I cut off. Now this side here is a previous cut that I did with my circular cutoff saw, which would be, if you can see that back there, way in back there, that's my old cutoff saw. That probably is not going to see a whole hell of a lot of use anymore now that I've got the bandsaw. So that was the cut from the circular saw, and you can see all these burrs up in here. I mean, it just melts it, and it takes, trust me, it takes about at least 10 times longer than what that bandsaw just did. So this here, that's the cut from the bandsaw. and there's hardly any burrs there at all. The only one you got really is this one right at the bottom of the cut, and that really would not take much to just peel that off. I mean, maybe not with my fingers, but a pair of pliers would snap that right off of there like nothing. And a couple little fragments here, and those are just brushing right off with my fingers, so that's nothing. That's a pretty nice clean cut. I mean, yeah, there's some surface roughness to it because it's, you know, a pretty coarse blade, but I mean, that's only marginally better with an abrasive blade. But look at the edge on that. I mean, that edge is horrible, and that's nice and clean. So this is going to be a great addition to the shop. Plus, I've got so much more capacity in what I can cut. This bandsaw is big enough that I could have cut the beams that I did on the gantry. Where I could never do something like that with a cutoff saw. So I'm just taking another look at the gearbox here, where I mentioned about the oil up here and this oil fill screw that didn't match with the instructions. And I'm seeing now, I think they changed this quite a bit, because I just noticed there is a oil drain plug right down here. So I would say the procedure now is that they probably want it filled right up to that screw up in there. And when you change it, you drain the whole thing right out from there instead of taking the cover off like the instructions said. I think that was probably the previous model. If anyone knows, please leave it in the comments. It would be good for other people, and I definitely would like to know too how full that's supposed to be. But just looking at it, the design of it compared to what it says in the instructions, I think that's what the intentions are, that's a drain and a fill hole, and you probably fill it right to the edge of the fill hole. Anyways, till later. If you've made it this far, I hope you've enjoyed watching this video and found it entertaining or educational. If so, please consider hitting like or subscribe. It does help give me incentive to continue producing more. Thank you.